But thank you for all getting involved. Everyone I've spoken to who was on a rotation told me we've had some great questions. So one of the things we need to do as a team is take those questions away, because if you've got them, then the wider market's going to have those questions as well. So we need to pull those questions together, make sure we're answering them, make sure we look into those areas and commit to developing this more, because it's a really interesting journey we're on now. Look, I just want to finish with, and I touched a little bit on my presentation, this integrated strategy, how we overlap the technologies we've been talking about, so you can go away and get the very best out of them and understand which is the right tool, piece of technology for you to lean on to move you in the direction that you want to go. And that's going to be different for all of you. It's going to be different for each of your venues. You're going to have parts of your golf course or situation or market where you want to do this, and parts where you want to do that, parts where you want to do this with Acelepryn, but the label won't allow it. So how are we going to get around all of that? So I'm going to recap some of the stuff we've done today. We've identified that the more nematodes we send in, the higher levels of control we can get. So when we send 2.5 billion a hectare, or 25 nematodes per centimetre, in lab situation where we've got control of soil moisture, we've got control of temperature, we can get about 60% control. We know if we double that up to 50 per centimetre, in lab situations, we can get 100% control. Now, this was a study on mature leather jackets in that lab, so it was a difficult one. We wanted to make it difficult because we wanted to learn something. We wanted to test where we are. And we know our existing technology, Acelepryn, isn't great. And in that same trial, we managed to get 48% control, which is fairly reflective of the level of control we get on mature grubs with Acelepryn. So if you go in the spring, some of the questions I've had is, can we apply Acelepryn in the spring? Yes, you could choose to put your application out in the spring rather than the autumn if you wish to, but be realistic about the level of control you're going to get. Mature grubs at the moment with Acelepryn by itself, about that level. But what we did find in this study was when we combined those two strategies in lab conditions, we managed to up on mature grubs and NemaTrident up to that 100% control. So what we've now got to do is work out how we build that out into the field, how we get people that more robust, more consistent, super high level of control that some people need. Not everybody needs it. Some people are just looking for population reduction, but some people have incredibly high population levels or areas where they're under intense pressure to deliver the very best surfaces they can. And for those people, these integrated strategies might be the right way to go. So I've referred to this multiple times today. You'll all be aware. You can probably repeat it with me. Untreated, 113. 70% control, NemaTrident. 90% control with Acelepryn. Combine the lot, we got down to 100%. So we've replicated what we saw in the lab. We've seen it out in the field. Standard advice now. We've been talking about this today. Timing-wise, critical in the UK. We don't get those warm winters. We get the temperatures drop off. If we want to use NemaTrident, if we want to use nematodes in our soil, we've got to get them in before those soil temperatures drop below 8 degrees. So our windows are tight, but we're not in control of when crane flies are flying, so we've got to sandwich it in there. So Acelepryn, end of October. NemaTrident and NemaSpreader within 7 days of that application. We're not tank mixing them. As much as the logic tells me that that will give me the same results, we haven't seen it in our trial data. When we find out and when we learn what's going on, if we can move things on, we will let you know. But for the moment, separate application of NemaTrident within 7 days. Now, this is going to take some planning because you've seen all the challenges. You've seen how easily you can eat those jellied worms and you can kill those nematodes. If you don't get them ordered at the right time, in the fridge at the right time, stored at the correct temperature, then they're going to start going downhill every day. So you've got to plan and organise this. Now, if you think you can't commit to it because you think you can't get that spray timing done, I would advise you steer away from this programme. But if you can commit to it, wholeheartedly go ahead. Do everything you can to get that right. Because when we combine them, the results have been excellent. We've seen that in summary trials. So again, I've shared this graph in the rotation session. We've seen this not just once or twice in trials, we see it over and over again. The power of NemaTrident is great. We get 50, 60, maybe 70% control when we do everything right. Acelepryn will give us up to 90%, sometimes 100, but we tighten that down when we combine the two strategies. So what's going on? We've got a nice soil structure full of horrible little leather jackets. What we're doing, third week of October, we're sending Acelepryn in to deal with them. Acelepryn's great, but we've got multiple ages and diverse species in here because some of them hatched in August. Some of them hatched at the beginning of September. A lot of them hatched at the peak. Some of them hatched later. So we've got all sorts of different age diversities going on. Now the Acelepryn takes out a lot of those little ones. It takes out all of the weaker ones, but there are some that survive because they've been in the soil for 3-4 weeks in good temperatures, feeding regularly. They're much, much harder, but we slow them down with that Acelepryn. We can knock them on the head. Now we might be lucky. The soil might be full of those young juvenile ones and we might get really high levels of control at that first attempt with Acelepryn. But it's highly likely in high pressure situations, there's going to be a really wide age group. If we can't kill them with Acelepryn, at least we can slow them down. They're slowed down, but they're now super vulnerable to the army of nematodes that we're going to send in. Because they've all slowed down, they're all weak, they're all in paralysis. And this is why the timing's so important. We've got crane flies hatching. We've got no control of when they do that, but they do it. We've got soil temperatures that are dropping. So we've got to get that in after they've hatched, but before the soil temperatures drop, so we've got time before the soil temperatures go too far for these nematodes to do their job. That will then mop up the remainder. Now I've left one in here because it's always, I've got to try and be realistic. There'll be 1 or 2 left. We're never going to solve your problem. I say never, we're going to continue working on it. That's my goal. My goal is to get your population's level so low that all of you say, I'm a number 1 on that 1 to 5 scale. That's incredibly complex because we've got to get control of that bird pecking issue. That's the next phase. But this, I'm really confident this is going to reduce those population levels if you stick to these programs and you work with all the things you've learned today. But timing is everything on this. It is critical. We have to commit. We have to work at it. We have to put those dates in the diary. We have to make sure product is being delivered when we want it. We have to store it correctly. We've got to apply it right. We've got to do everything well. I'm going to reiterate this message and I'm not going to apologise about it. Acelepryn, end of October, get that NemaTrident and NemaSpreader down within 7 days of that Acelepryn application. One of the things we looked at in my group was pest tracker data, trying to understand when these crane fly are flying. This is our peak flight, back end of September, beginning of October. We want to be right in on the back of that peak flight. Soil temperatures are dropping on us that time of year. We are losing soil temperatures quickly. This is 8 degrees. Once we get under 8 degrees, they'll happily live, but they're not going to do a lot of work. They're going to sit in your soil, sitting around, waiting for leather jackets to drive past. So you've got a tight window to get this in. You've got to get this in kind of third week, nematodes in beforehand. Now, we haven't just done trial data, we haven't just done lab work, we've taken this out into the field as well. And I want to share with you before we go a tale of 3 user trials. These weren't trials where we went in, we paid someone to apply it, we paid someone to come in to assess. This is when we handed it all over with this advice to some course managers. So you go and get on with it. It was really interesting because we got 3 completely different results out of 3 different golf course managers. All 3 of them, I trust implicitly to do the job. We got 3 different outcomes. Now golf course number 1, Acelepryn did an amazing job for us. So what we did in this trial, we applied Acelepryn to all 18 greens. So all 18 greens have been applied with Acelepryn. We did this across all 3 golf courses. Then we went into 9 random greens, which I wasn't aware of, which ones we treated, and we treated with NemaTrident afterwards within those 7 days to see what additional level of control we would get over the Acelepryn. I went in and assessed blind, not knowing which ones had been treated with both treatments and which ones had been treated with just Acelepryn, pulled all the data together, and then we kind of studied it all to see what we could learn across the 3 golf courses. So in the first golf course, we went in, assessed all 18 greens. The story there was it was great success, but Acelepryn performed so well that no damage, 0 damage across the whole site could be measured. So I couldn't pull any additional benefits out of NemaTrident in that situation because every green was completely clean. Great example of where Acelepryn has stepped up to the plate, done a brilliant job for us. There was pressure in other areas of the golf course, but in that situation, Acelepryn did everything we needed. So golf course number 1, brilliant success, but no additional benefit from the NemaTrident could be measured. Golf course number 2, cautionary tale. Spray windows were challenging. It's a windy site. We didn't manage to get the first batch of product down. We went past our use by date. Sprayer broke down. We missed an opportunity. We got more product in. That went past its use by date. Temperature dropped. We actually got the Acelepryn in the end just before we went into the really cold period last year. But we wasted 2 batches of products in that situation. They got thrown away. Now this isn't like Acelepryn where you can put it on the shelf and save it for next year. These are products that degrade. Now I could have just buried this trial and not told you about it and pretend everything's positive and rosy, but it's not. If you're going to commit to these programs, you need to take it seriously. You need to plan it out. You need to write it in your diary. You need to plan your delivery processes, and you've got to try and do everything you can to get it. There were spray windows that were missed in this situation, and he recognises that in hindsight. But we've got to commit, you've got to go. If you look at it beforehand and you think it's unrealistic, do not commit to the program. Because I don't want to see anyone thinking we've missed our opportunity and we've wasted it. You need to commit, and really prepare yourself. But golf course 3, we saw added benefits. Now it's a high-end venue up in Scotland, it's Turnberry, Trump Turnberry. Minimal damage, as you would expect, delivering high-end surfaces. But we did find damage we could measure, and this is what we were measuring. It's a job I particularly enjoy because I walk around randomly throwing hula hoops around, counting inside how many pieces of leather jacket activity I can find. And then I go home and I crunch all the data, and then they do the big reveal and tell me which greens were treated with which. Awesome surfaces, very little levels of leather jacket damage, and I thought it was going to be a similar result to the first golf course I went to, where we weren't going to pick anything out because everything had done a really nice job. A little bit of a complex graph, but I'm going to explain to you what all this means. So bear with me. This is the amount of damage count per hula hoop. Really technical piece of data that. But every hula hoop I had, on average, how many pieces of evidence inside could I find of leather jacket activity? Now on my hula hoop scale rating, if you're at 10 or above, I think you will struggle to present a decent putting surface. Golfers start to notice at a level of 10 on the Glen hula hoop scale. In this situation, all of the Acelepryn treated greens averaged 1.2. Brilliant result. We'd be really, really pleased with that. If 10 is kind of our threshold, we're coming in at 1.2 with Acelepryn, phenomenal. But when you look at this data, what you start to see is these are the extremes. So in our worst case scenarios across the all 18 greens on all those assessments, we were hitting 2.7 on the hula hoop scale, still miles below our 10 threshold that I would normally put in place. And our best case scenario was right down at 0. So brilliant result for Acelepryn. But because we're doing so many data points on these kind of assessments, we can pull some really strong statistics out of this. And what we can prove is statistically, when we put the two together, we moved it on massively. So our average now is 0.7. So we've dropped it dramatically, but our worst case scenario was just over 1. So our worst case scenario when we combined them was the same as our average in the treated plots. So this is an incremental gain. This is a move things forward. This is when we're looking for high-end surfaces and we want everything we can get. If we work really hard on those timings, we're so confident now, we've seen the data so many times that we are stepping things up by combining these strategies. I'm going to get you all to repeat it soon. End of October, 7 days, Acelepryn, NemaTrident. Now, as we stand here today, we've launched Acelepryn. Thank goodness the emergency authorisations are over. And we've launched NemaTrident. And we're talking about an integrated strategy. So we've got Acelepryn, which we can offer you. Great levels of control, consistently at 90%. Really simple application. We know the timing is very specific, but it's a very simple thing to mix up, get out, and use on your golf course. We can combine that together. Acelepryn, NemaTrident, NemaSpreader. You can buy this in that Leatherjacket Total Approach Pack in 1 hectare, or you can blend things depending on your own setup. But it's available. We've worked really hard to make that a useful pack to help you, the sports turf industry. That gives us our best levels of control, but there's some complexities in the application. We need to really think about this. We need to commit, we need to write it in our diary, we need to plan it, we need to do it, we need to work hard to make sure we get it right. This is what the future of golf course management looks like and turf management. This is integrated strategies, this is taking it seriously, this is doing things well. It's no longer just chuck it in the tank and hope it's going to work. Or we can offer you NemaTrident by itself. It's population reduction. I would never stand here and say it's going to solve your problems. It's going to reduce that population. It's going to move you forward year on year on year if you commit to programs. If you've got low pressure, it'll move you into relatively good pressure. If you've got super high pressure, it will take you out of those trouble zones. And it's a complex application. But there's lots of areas where this might be essential. You've got 10% you can use your Acelepryn in. So you might need to lean on this technology for other areas, using everything you've learned today to help you get the very best out of it and work towards a better situation. We're going to provide this to all of the distribution. Rather than me running through it now, we can give you a decision matrix to help support you on what you're going to use in different parts of the golf course. But basically, can you use Acelepryn? Yes, use it because it's brilliant. But you can't, in some situations you can't, you might be limited to what's available in your area, you might be beyond your 10%, then lean on other technologies. Look at what pieces together in your specific situation. Now I'm going to walk you through how we could piece that together as an example. Sean spoke earlier about this map and the allocation of Acelepryn we would have available in this situation. So in this situation, in this hypothetical golf course, we've got 2.7 hectares worth of Acelepryn we can use. For some of you, that might not be enough to deal with the challenges you've got over a wider area, but you've got to start thinking now how you integrate all of this together to build that puzzle for you. And in this worked example, for this golf course, greens are absolutely essential, as I would suggest they are for most of you. We've got to do the best we can, so we're going to lean on Acelepryn on those 1 hectare of greens, leaving us 2.7 hectares left of our Acelepryn allocation. Tees, now we could go at all our tees, but actually we're going to build a historic case study together about which ones we tend to see pressure on. We're going to try and save some. In some of those tees, we don't need to. We've got championship tees that hardly ever see any play, so they don't need those applications. We've got tees that see a lot of traffic, and we do lots of overseeding. It's not an issue. But in this situation, we're going to go for 0.5 of our selected tees. We're going to try and bespoke and fit this now to our golf course needs. But what we do have in this particular golf course is a situation around the clubhouse on the first carry where we get lots of chafer challenge down the left-hand side of the rough. We really want to commit to that and get that problem solved. So we're going to use 1.2 hectares in targeted areas for high-profile parts of the golf course. That's how we're going to allocate out our 2.7 hectares of Acelepryn. We now need to start thinking about the wider course and how we integrate these strategies together. So we're going to lean on NemaTrident on a few greens. In a few greens we get a particular problem. These ones are down through the valley on this particular hypothetical golf course, always cooler in the spring, tougher to warm up, harder to get somewhere. So we're going to lean on that additional support of NemaTrident on those to try and make sure they're in the best place possible. But we don't feel a need to commit to the rest of the golf course. They're irrigated areas, so our timing is fairly easy on those because we can control our moisture levels. We have control so we can make that work. But we also want to work on the first fairway, the 18th carry and the 18th landing area, which in this situation might be a couple of hectares. We're going to have to think differently about these because they are not irrigated. We don't have control of moisture. So we're going to have to look at separate timings. Do we go in the autumn once we start to re-wet? Is that going to work with the timings of our chafers? Do we actually understand what's going on? We've got to start piecing this together, thinking about different timings. It's complex, it's not easy, but we're here to support, we're here to educate, and we're here to offer you solutions that we know will move you forward. Touched on chafers, some really exciting data with chafers, but we haven't got enough of it yet to really commit. We know Acelepryn does a great job. We know NemaTrident, when we've got the right moisture levels, can give us good levels of control. But please, as an industry, come on the journey with us as we learn more about chafers and we find more solutions for you, and we will share that information, just like we've done on the Leatherjacket journey, to get you further along. There's some really positive stuff. I just haven't seen enough of it yet to be shouting from the rooftops about an integrated strategy, but both the solutions we've got outside of that are pretty effective when the situations are right. So, to summarise today, really excited to launch Acelepryn. It's been a long journey. Hugely grateful to everyone in the Syngenta team that's got it this far. Really thankful to everyone who supported me with user trials, understanding the product in the market in the UK and moving that knowledge forward. We've got to a position where I'm really confident we can now solve people's high population levels in specific areas. We've still got a journey to go to solve bird pecking for you all, but with Acelepryn we have an amazing product and a hell of a regulatory journey behind us. From a biological point of view, I'm really pleased to be offering NemaTrident and NemaSpreader, two really good bits of technology that, with the right advice, the right application technique and the right mindset, can make real dents in our challenges and move us forward dramatically, particularly when you start integrating it together with the chemistry that we have. We're pleased to put that together in one pack to support as many people as possible, to make that ordering process as simple, to make you really commit to it, and talk to your distribution channels about the Total Approach Pack. It'll be very exciting to see how that goes, and if you've got any questions about it, please find myself or Sean and we'll be more than happy to support you on that journey. And then finally, digital. It's quite a messy picture at the moment. There's lots of different tools in there. Lots of things for you to lean on. But go into the Syngenta Turf website, have a really good dig around. There's some amazing tools on there that will really help you in your decision-making process, along with all the advice you've got today to help move you forward, not just on insect control, but with disease control, understanding weather patterns and all of that. And we continue to work on that journey. I've got a whole list of people that want to support me on that Turf Advisor journey. You'll be getting emails quite soon about getting you on board with that. But that's a really interesting area, and an area Syngenta continue to commit to make sure that you've got the tools you need to make good decisions. On final time, Acelepryn, end of October, NemaTrident and NemaSpreader. Within 7 days, people, within 7 days. Don't let it die in your fridge. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the integrated strategy.